Hello everyone, I'm Greg Smith of Blind Pig Press and welcome to episode 2 of Tales from the Typecase. Let's gather round the typecase and let's hear what the type is telling us tonight. Tonight we're going to be looking at a classic, perhaps not a classic the way you're thinking when I say classic, a mid-Victorian font that is a workhorse and is used worldwide and still popular. So we're going to look at 30-point Clarendon tonight. So instead of sitting around and chatting, let's get to it. So here we have 30-point Clarendon medium, and you'll see it's in still a California job case, but this is a fancy wooden one. And if we zoom in on the handle of the typecase, you'll see that it's a Hamilton wood type manufacturing typecase from Twin Rivers, Wisconsin, and they have a museum there you may care to visit. But this is, like I said, still a California job case. Now, like the last case that we looked at, it is set up very similarly. So we have the lowercase over here and the uppercase font over here, or uppercase letters over here. Some of the things that I didn't mention the last time, we have, and you'll notice that this is empty, probably because I borrow spacing material from case to case, because you can never have enough spacing material. So we have our M quads here and our N quads here, and we have, various spacing in here, and mostly I keep regular word spacing in here. And up at the top here, you'll see there are the numerals, which start with 1 and go all the way down to the other end there to 0. And we also have some little bit of unusual things happening in the typecase. If you look next to the G over here is the K, the lowercase k. And up at the top here, we have the J. So that's a little unusual. So it's fairly new type, I would imagine. And it also has some interesting pieces in here. It has a nice M dash, one of my favorite characters. And it also has, unusually, it has a slash. So yeah, there's quite a few of them here as well. Also, sort of in the bastard corner over here, we have the X, the Z, and we have an ampersand. And over here, we have a Q. So now this type was also nefariously obtained, and I probably shouldn't tell you where it came from because I could get in trouble still. This company is still around. Now, W. Pincus Jasper definitely has a lot to say about Clarendon. And if we skip through here, you'll see we have, 1.5 pages or 1 2/3 pages about Clarendon itself. Now, the typeface itself is actually quite old. It comes from the sort of mid-Victorian period. And again, it was a solid advertising face. And you can see it is sturdy with those robust serifs. However, it was used in a lot of cases as a bold face for accompanying other fonts. So what we have here is the medium weight. So we have, Haas Clarendon here, we have Linotype Clarendon, and we have Haas Linotype Clarendon Stempel. We also have a bold, which we're going to be featuring in another video. And it also became sort of the shorthand for any font that sort of looked like this, any sort of bold typeface or headline face. And the other thing about it is it's a little more refined than your average slab serif. And the serifs were bracketed, which we're going to see in a little bit. And it is quite a useful typeface, I find. It has a sort of a quiet dignity to it, while it still remains workmanlike. And again, this is sort of how we think of ourselves. So let's take a closer look at some of the more interesting letter forms. The first one I provided is a G, and the G, I've put it in here for a couple of reasons. First is you'll notice that it looks rather grotty, and this sort of gives us a hint as to what the font was used for previously. And you'll see that there's some color on it, and it's not ink. It's because it was used for foil stamping. The stuff on it is actually from the foil stamper when it was used sometimes to make titles for TV shows. Oh, sorry, that's giving away too much. Anyways, you'll also notice at the bottom there's that little kerf at the bottom of the G and the serif at the top, which we can see sort of echoed here in the C. Now, this is where things get sort of interesting as well. You'll see this little terminal point that sort of turns up here at this point, which is repeated in the lowercase t as well. So there are those elegant elements to it. And you'll also notice that the W has sort of the single point at the top here. So it's not overlapping. The two V's are not overlapping. And there's also a serif at the top of each of those, sort of the two terminals, but also the midpoint, the point where the arc is at the top, or the arch is at the top. Now, also with the Q, you'll see we have this quite elegant sort of tail piece at the bottom. And I find that to be very interesting as well. You know, it is, you know, if you look at the serifs, again, you can sort of see the brackets in there, the little rounding outs. But this is quite elegant for the font it is. And also the G, if I can turn it around a little bit here so it's a little better aligned, which threw the B out there. But if you look at the G, again, we have, you know, the sort of the two bold G's. So there's a bowl in the upper half and there's a bowl in the lower half. You've got this nice elegant transition. And you also, on the little ear at the top of the G here, you have a ball terminal. I'm just going to move this over a little bit so it's nicely spaced. This is the lowercase b, so don't be deceived that it is the D. But you'll see that there's a little, again, a little curve at the foot of the B there. And there's another ball terminal on the R. And we've talked about the T with this little turn up here. And there's also quite an elegant Y with another ball terminal at the end. And what I had mentioned before is sometimes when you look at type, you'll look at the side of the type, and sometimes there will be an identifying mark or a pin mark at the side. But you'll notice that there's no pin mark on this type. And on the foot of the type, you'll see that it has been planed down. So there's a little plane, it gets cleaned up a little bit after it's cast. So we don't really know the type founder. It's difficult to guess as to what version of Clarendon this is, but it's probably not foundry type. It would be cast monotype. So here's a broadside that we did using Clarendon, and it actually contains some other fonts that we're going to be talking about later on, including one of our favorites. We won't say anything about that just yet, okay? So here's a sample of Clarendon printed, and it's on a small broadside that I did a few years ago, and you can see that the paper is textured. And one of the reasons that I used Clarendon was because it could sort of bang into the paper and still keep its crispness. And you can see that wonderful G in there. And you can see also, rather than the spur on the bottom of the B, you can see the D gets a full serif. So quite interesting there. And then the ball terminals again on top of the G and at the bottom of the Y. So there you have it, 30-point Clarendon. And we're going to be looking at more tales from the Typecase next week. So I hope you can join us. And also, if you can, like and subscribe to our videos. This is how I'm going to make it through the rest of my life. This is my retirement plan. So, ante up. We'll see you next week.